Hello, everybody. We are back in interviews from Another Zero, and I am very happy, very excited to have Josefina Lopez here. Thank you so much for being here, making the time and the space. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
We are here mainly because you are coming to San Diego and you are doing an afternoon with Josefina Lopez at the Solomon Theater as part of the Playwrights Project set of events. So, can you tell me how that is gonna look like? It's coming up in April. What can people enjoy from that?
Well, one of them is, California Playwrights Project helped produce my play and when I was 18, and it made such a huge difference in my life. It changed my life forever. So they asked me to, help them with a fundraiser. So I'm really happy to help them because I think it'll change the life of so many young people who have their play and they feel heard and seen, after the play gets presented. So it's a very worthy organization. So I invite people to come join me. And it's going to be great because, I'm going to talk about my career. Like, I started out at 18 years old, getting
Mhm.
my first play produced. Now I'm 57 years old. So I have a lot of wisdom to share as far as like having a professional career as a writer. Also, I'm a wise woman now. I'm also training as a shaman and as a curandera, a Mexican shaman. And so I have a lot of wisdom to share. And, I have so many stories and adventures that I've gone on in every kind of way. So I just love sharing the journeys because I love to save people the pain and the trouble of of having to do things on their own or feeling like they're alone. And I love to give people free advice. So because I don't want people to suffer the way I did or to struggle the way I did. I like to make things easy for people so that they can create stories, especially if they're aspiring writers, so that they can create great stories so they can become great writers.
hmm Yeah, there's so much that you're saying that I'm picking up on that I'm like, oh my God, I want to ask her this, I want to ask her that. The struggles or what you've gone through, there's thankfully it's not necessarily less and less, but we see more and more stories. That is, I think, a better way to put it, where it's happened where, oh, I don't see the stories that I want to see on stage. So I started creating my own instead of
Mhm.
waiting for that story to land to come or whatever. Does this have to do, or is this something that you went through and it's part of that those struggles that you mentioned, or what were those
Yes,
struggles?
it very little has changed I mean, obviously, there are more Latino playwrights now, more people of color, but the economics are still there that control whose story is seen as important, whose story gets produced. So yeah, I felt like there was no representation for Latinos and for women and for people like me. So I felt like I had to tell my story. And yeah, I think ultimately we have to believe that our story is worth telling, that our story matters, and then we have to, I've devoted my life to this. It's been a hard road, but I've had to believe in my story, but also I realize that my story, even though I think it's unique to me, it really is a story of so many people. When you tell the truth and you tell it authentically, honestly, you're telling the story of thousands of people. And
Mhm.
especially when you realize that you feel alone when you write and you're like, oh, does anybody care? Am I just crazy? Am I stupid? Especially like, I have attention deficit disorder. And it's
Hey.
something that I struggled with my
Yeah.
whole life that at 30, I finally got diagnosed and I kind of felt like, okay. So I felt very alone. And so I really had to trust myself and believe that what I had to say was important and it wasn't crazy. And so luckily it paid off and I have a career now and I'm very happy that so many people can learn from my experiences and are inspired to go tell their story.
Real women have curves has been like my great white whale throughout my theater seeing journey. I'm always somewhere else when it's playing. Obviously, I wanted to see it on Broadway, but and we're having another production close by and a concert. But I do want to know. I would have won, and I'm a huge Jesse and Joy fan as well. But why is it? I'm assuming it's part of the same that we're saying about economics and stuff, but the run was short. on Broadway. Why is this? People were so excited about it.
The story, well, there are a lot of factors, and the ones that I am aware of are these. One is this, the one that is like the rational, factual one is that there weren't enough ticket sales. And although our houses were full, a lot of tickets are sold at half price at the TKT booth in Times Square. So um, we were a huge success because we would get two standing ovations every night.
Mhm.
So it was artistically a huge hit. But financially, I think a lot of people, and again, I don't know for sure. I can only speculate that some people felt that the marketing was off. Some people felt it was great. And there's no formula for marketing a Latina show, right? Because it's never happened before in the history of Broadway. So it's hard to say like how you do something when there is no formula. So some people said no, that they wanted to make it an American story, but they weren't upfront about that it was a Latino story. Other people said, well, they wanted to make it a women's story, but there's still a lot of sexism.
Mhm.
Some people don't care to see women become empowered, except for women who do care, and so it's hard to say, but the producers felt that it hadn't found its audience. And there's so many ways to get a show to Broadway. And the typical way is to start at a regional theater, and then if it proves itself there, to bring it to Broadway, right? That's the shortcut. The or go straight to Broadway, which most people don't want to do that because that's really risky. And so I think had it maybe run at different theater companies or gone on a tour and then gone to Broadway, then maybe it would have already been a hit. The
Mhm.
word would have gotten out, and then it would have opened on Broadway, and then there would have been anticipation. I'm not sure because I've never done this. I'm not a Broadway producer. I'm a regular theater producer, so I'm not operating at that level. So I can't say that that's how it would have happened. So the producers felt that they were going to go on tour and then come back to Broadway. That's kind of what we were told. And but the other reality is that um there was ice everywhere at that time, right? And I even spoke to unofficially, I spoke to a young man who was helping with the production who said that he himself, just a few blocks away, had fought with some people that were masked thinking this person was being kidnapped, only to find out that he gets taken and it's ICE. And this was just like 3, 4 blocks away.
Mhm.
So the reality of also our community not feeling safe enough to go to the theater, and the irony of like us talking about being rated, and the play deals with all that, and then that happening right outside,
Wow.
it was really harsh. And so I think that was part of it. There also, I think, so, I feel like there could have been more marketing efforts done to the Spanish speaking community. So I don't know. Some people said it was great because it was everywhere. Other people said it wasn't enough. So quién sabe, So right now, as far as I know, the tour is going to be postponed for a little bit because of the climate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other reality,
Mhm.
is that this show was the most relevant show on Broadway. But it was also, I think, why it hurt us. It's funny that, art should speak and hold a mirror to society. And my play was doing that, but it was too close, I guess. And Broadway tends to be a place where people play it safe, where
Mhm.
the shows that do not offend anyone tend to do the best. And
Mhm.
that's kind of
Oh,
the reality too. When people look at that kind of financing where it takes $25 million to get to Broadway, right? To open on Broadway. So most people find material, producers find material that is safe. And really, personally, I felt like I knew which show was going to win. It was going to be the one that was the least offensive, the one that didn't challenge anyone, the one that made people feel good about themselves, the one that was safe and comfortable and sweet. And I also felt like Broadway's still not ready for people of color.
mhm.
It's still very racist and sexist, and people would think, "Oh, that's not true." And I go, "Yes, it is," But people say, well, then how could Real Women get to Broadway? Well, because of the efforts of a lot of people who believe that, women's stories matter and that Latino stories should be on Broadway. And so there was also the other factor that people thought, well, there were two Latino shows, so it kind of felt like they had to give a Tony to one or the other, but they couldn't have two Latino shows for Best Musical being nominated in the same year. So
Uh-huh.
that was also the other factor. There was a lot of reasons, and I learned a lot through this experience.
Uh-huh.
Because, and the other reality is that men's stories tend to dominate entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Men are the heroes of stories, and men produce stories and direct stories and finance stories, so they always want to be the hero.
Mm-hmm.
So having women be the heroines of their own story, that's still, I guess, too progressive for 2025, I guess, last year, right?
Yeah.
It still surprises me, right? That I, in my lifetime, I thought I would have seen a change, that I thought I would have seen more progress. And so yeah, it's been kind of disappointing, but my dream came true to be on Broadway. So I feel really happy and satisfied that that happened. And we got nominated for two Tonys. And Joy Huerta and Ben Velez did an incredible job. The music is incredible. I really, really thought they were going to win for Best Musical. I mean for Best Score.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt they deserved it. That of all, I mean, our songs were just incredible and has so much soul and heart. There were so many amazing things about our show that I just felt we were cheated out of. But I'm sure everyone feels that way, but I know we were cheated. And I tell people, how is it that a show about a corpse beat out Real Women Have Curves for Best Book? About the desecration of a corpse. How is it that the show about trying to find a dead body to use in a military operation beat us
Oh
out?
my God. Oh my
How
God.
is it that
From
a
another
show
country, right?
about
Yeah.
two narcissistic women trying to kill each other and trying to drink this thing to keep them young beat out Real Women Have Curves? How is it that a show about two robots in love beat out Real Women Have Curves?
Ay, Josefina, it's
A
just, it's
show that deals with race, gender, class, body shaming. It's inspirational and it's a comedy. All right.
um,
And it's like, one of the most original shows on Broadway ever, right? And
mhm,
how is it that we lost out? And what I get is that I really feel like, oh, when I went to the Tonys, I said, oh, I think the people don't pick the Tonys. The committee doesn't. It's ABC, CBS, sorry, CBS who gets to pick the Tonys because they control everything that's on that screen. So they're not going to have happy undocumented immigrants dancing and celebrating their lives when a person who's going to buy CBS, who's a Trump supporter, is not going to like that. Like, why would they let us win?
mhm,
Right? So for me, when I was at the Tonys, I said, "Oh, I see who's going to win." I started predicting every winner because I said these are the safest choices. These are the ones that are not going to offend anyone. These are the people that are not going to speak up against Trump. These are the people that are not going to say anything against being an immigrant, being Latino, speaking up for the voiceless, which is what theater and art should do. So that after that, I kind of went, I'm not sure if Broadway's for me. I really do hope that the show comes back to Broadway one day when the consciousness in society is ready. But right now, I really just want the show to open in Latino communities because I really want it to be a story that inspires our community to not give up, to not be broken, to not be disheartened, and that's really why I do what I do.
yes, absolutely. And this is a whole master class. It should be like even a college, like a class slash
Yes,
credit about this, because this
I
is a
do. I
whole
would love to
other
teach a
side.
class on like the reality of being on Broadway and
Yeah, yeah.
my experience is so limited, but I learned a lot.
Mhm,
And I feel like when people talk about like, oh, why aren't there Latino shows? As though it's our failing when it's not. When it's not the failing of women or people of color. There are economic forces that control whose story matters more.
mhm,
There's also an agenda because they go, how is it that there were four shows about the desecration of human bodies? And those got nominated for Tonys. And my show, which is about the celebration of your body, the celebration of yourself, the power of being a human being and resiliency. How is it that that was not worthy of a Tony nomination for Best Book? Yeah. So
mhm.
I had to really kind of dig deep in my heart and speak to God and do my spiritual work to go, okay, there's a huge lesson here. What can I take from this? So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you. Yeah, it's a whole situation, and I think it's various. It's like a pot, right? So it's very all these cooks coming in and being like, "Oh no, I need salt. Oh no, maybe a little bit of sugar to bring out the," and then it becomes this thing where it just lost all part of the essence because it was about what others thought might work or might be. And the beauty, I see it this way, the beauty of pieces like a book, a musical, a play is that the universal aspect of it when it has nothing to do with you and it hits you hard and it has conversations with you and asking yourself questions, crying, I cry, I'm a crier, things like that where I'm like, why am I crying? Why is it hitting me this way? This has nothing to do. And I feel that that's part of the vice that's going on where it's like, oh, Latino show, and it's like, yes, but it's way more than that because it appeals to, women and the
yeah.
positivity and
And I mean, and that's
love.
why this story has become more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
This story has not only survived but succeeded because it is a universal story of the human spirit and the resiliency of all human beings, and especially this incredible power and bond that women have, and how we
Mm-hmm.
can transcend so many things through this type of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, and it has it has surprised me as well. Believe me, I didn't think it was going to be this successful. So I'm grateful to the creator that it has been.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as a writer, playwright, when you create something, and in this case, also this example is so pertinent, and then like, oh, this the formatting of it all or the branching on the formats, like, oh, movie, musical, how does that impact you with your work and being like, I wrote this, but now you want to make it into this or that? How is that for you, like for your playwriting heart and with
Well,
your project?
it's been such a learning experience for me because when you write something again that is authentic and powerful, it can and the message is so powerful that it could be presented in any medium. That's what I've learned. When I teach writing and I tell people, write a story that is so with a theme that is so powerful that it could be done as a play, a movie, a novel, a TV show, even a video game, or a cookbook or whatever, a talk show. So yeah, I think that's what it is the message is so powerful. And it's been wonderful because, very few people get to have a play that then they adapt to a movie that then gets to be made a show on Broadway. And now I'm working on trying to get the TV, the sitcom version of it
Yeah,
you
that's what
know.
I was going to ask you
But,
next. Right?
it's almost like we have to wait a couple years until the climate is different, until people stop being racist, or until, a new election happens, quién sabe. Um, so yeah, sometimes I've had to learn patience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I go, wow, I'm 18 when I started and I'm
Yep.
57, and there's just so much more racism. Well, it's always been there, but now it's in the open.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good part, is that at least it's obvious now. Before they just used to call me crazy, be like, oh, you're just, you have a chip on your shoulder. People aren't racist. I go, no, they are now. Now it's
Yeah.
obvious. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's out there.
that's the good thing about it.
Mm-hmm. And this, going back to the event on April 11th, where you're going to be there an afternoon with people, is
Yes.
it going to be something where it's going to be more of a conversation, or people are going to go and be like, I have this line that I'm stuck on.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna probably talk about my journey.
Mhm.
And I think I have like an hour, so I think I'll go really quickly. And then I'll probably take questions. And my hope is that there are a lot of students, and then there are a lot of people that ask really important questions, especially if they themselves are writers. Because, like, there are things that I love to share about, like how you skip steps. Because like, I have a master's degree in screenwriting, and I tell people, look, I love that I have an MFA in screenwriting, but it's useless. Don't go get one.
Mhm.
Read 100 screenplays. The top 100 screenplays that have won an Oscar, or the top 100 read that. After reading the 100th screenplay, you will be an expert, okay? Save yourself the 20, no, the $100,000 you would have spent at a university degree, or $300,000 if you go to USC, and just go do that. And again, I love to save people money and time because I feel like if I've gone through all this and all this suffering and all this frustration, I want to be able to give it back to people so they don't have to go through that.
That's awesome. And going back here also ADD. Hey, going back a little bit to what you were saying about Real Women Have Curves becoming a sitcom, but waiting for a little bit. And in this times where we're seeing, like, for example, Lempicka that didn't also do well on Broadway, and it's now in Korea, like thriving, or something that comes to mind right now is like Betty La Fea, that it was like this Colombian success and then it went to Mexico, but then they brought it to the States, things like that. Have you thought about like other countries, other languages?
Yeah, so when I spoke to the producer, he produced Chicago, so he's a big time producer. He said he loved the fact that Chicago did so well in Mexico.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, I would love to take Real Women Have Curves to Mexico. So I'm actually, and again, don't say this to anyone, but I'm thinking of like just starting to translate it. I think, you know what, I'm going to translate this just for the hell of it, just for my fun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because I do feel like, you know what, I think it'll be a hit everywhere else but Broadway. And then until it's proven itself, then it goes back to Broadway, be like, oh, of course it's a hit. So yeah, I have no doubt that if when it comes back at a better time, where the environment is more supportive of women and people of color and Latinos,
Mhm.
I think it'll be a huge hit.
Mhm.
So I'm optimistic. Again, like when things don't work out, I trust God. I have an incredible faith in God, and when things don't work out, I go, oh, okay, there's probably a better way to get there. And, like after the Tony nominations came out, I really did have a talk with God, and I was told, look, remember, and again, you know, I was told, remember how Real Women Have Curves did not win the jury award at Sundance, but it won the audience award. And I said, oh, that's right. And I said, remember how that movie that won the jury award did nothing? No one saw it, no one remembers it, it's gone.
Mhm.
But the People Picture movie,
Mhm.
so if there was a Tony for an audience award, your musical would have won it. So just know that in the long run, like my movie was at the Museum of Motion Picture Academy next to Citizen Kane because it was a very different type of movie compared to like a male-centric movie about a man who's lusting for power versus women working together. And I was so moved, and I realized, oh my God, my movie didn't win the award, but it's proven itself and it's making history. So, in the same way that it hasn't won Tonys, I believe that my musical is going to change Broadway one day, that it's going to change theater one day. So sometimes God asks me to look at the long road and realize that sometimes what I'm doing is not for me, that it's for other people, that it's going to make it easier for other Latinos and people of color and women to tell their stories. So sometimes, and I've been told this, look, you were the bravest soul that decided to do this. So you're the kind of person that I can take so much rejection. I've had thousands of rejections, right? And it's because I believe in me and I've been endowed with this gift. And I don't know if it's ADD, maybe that's it. Maybe my gift is ADD, that my brain is so fast that I have 1,000 stories in here. I have 1,000 jokes. I have so much creativity that I have no doubt that if you knock me down with one story, I'll come back with another one in 10 minutes. You knock me down, I'll come back another one with 8 minutes. Knock me down, I'll come back with another, and that's
Yeah.
how my brain works. So I'm very blessed that I can keep moving forward. Whereas a lot of people may have a couple good ideas and after rejection, they'll just give up. And me, no. I tell people my father got deported at least 6 times. He said he stopped counting after the sixth time. He got deported that many times and he would not give up.
Mhm.
And I asked my father, why wouldn't you give up? And he said, because how could I give up? I had your mother and 8 kids, like, no, he had like 6, 7 kids. He goes, how could
Mhm.
I give up? You depended on me. I had to fight. I had to keep us, like fed and alive. And so my father has that kind of determination. I think he had ADD, I'm sure, because who does that? Like who risks their lives that many times and not give up? So I think I have that as well.
Mhm.
And so that's like how I feel like what I do. I'm bold and outspoken, and sometimes I'll say the things that people go, "Oh, that's so impolite. How could you say that?" Or like whatever. But then I'll be like, "Yeah, but you know what? Someone needed to tell the truth." And I pay the price. I tell people, "Look, my career could have been so much further, But because I keep speaking up, I keep saying things, sometimes I get punished for it. I really do. And I know because I've had so many people tell me, look, I wanted to work with you, but all these men don't want to work with you because you're a feminist, or you're too outspoken, or you're a loose cannon, or whatever BS they want to say, or
You're
you have a chip on
feisty,
your
they
shoulder.
say, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no. And then I go, you know what? I don't care. I
Mhm.
don't care because I tell people I can live on ramen. I can live on like beans and rice. Like I grew up working class. Grew up with very little, right? But I grew up with this sense of like dignity that my parents showed me that I'd be like, you know what? For me, I'm not doing this to have another car, to have a better house. I'm doing this because it's an injustice. It's an injustice that Latinos are always portrayed as the bad guys. We are the bandidos in the white man's story, when in fact it was white men who stole Mexico,
Mhm.
right? It's like, how is it that they control the narrative so that we are either invisible or we're the bad guys, or we're the sluts and the whores and the servants? But
Yeah.
that's it. That's what they want in our story. And I'm like, I'm a real human being, and I've been made by the same creator that created white people, the white men. So when people don't want to hear the truth, then I go, you know what? Then it's your problem, And again, I can be a working class person all my life because I see the value and beauty and the celebration of being connected to family. So I am blessed in so many ways that nobody could hurt me because no one can take anything away from me, because that's the dignity that I give to myself, this idea that you cannot break me because within my soul I am whole.
Wow. Amen. Amen. So, oh, look at this. And you're from everything that you're doing right now, your studies, everything, what is coming next for Josefina?
Well, right now, we're doing Real Women Have Curves, the play at
Mhm,
my theater, Casa 0101, and that runs until May 3rd.
mhm.
And I am working on a play about the sterilization of hundreds of Mexican women, Mexican American women in Los Angeles back in the 70s. And well, for many decades, but it was in the 70s what they had the case. Um, they were sterilizing women against their will. They would not give them medication, pain medication, unless they signed away their right. And they basically like did these horrible things to Mexican women at the county hospital here. And so there's a case called Madrigal versus Quilligan.
Mhm.
And I've been wanting to tell that story for years. So I finally got commissioned to write it.
Oh,
So I'm going to start working on that story. And it's
wow.
important because my mother was one of those women who got sterilized. Luckily for my mother, I tell people, luckily my mother already had 8 kids. So for her, it was a relief, like,
Yeah.
but there were women who only had one child, and their dream of having a big family was taken away from them. And it just, so it's an exploration on consent and the women's rights over their bodies. So it's a very important play, and that's so I'm working on that. And I am always working. I have like 100 stories. I have to like list them all down to see, okay, which one's next, which one's next, which one's next.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I do a lot. I also, I write screenplays. I'm working on several screenplays, and again, waiting for a better time to try to sell a TV sitcom. And but the other thing I'm working on is I would like to start a healing school called the School of Joy. And it's going to be a way for people who are on a spiritual journey, who are just starting, to get some wisdom and advice and guidance. So my dream is that one day I can do spiritual retreats with women called the Real Women Have Curves experience, where
Okay.
women get to be in circles and learn about what it is to go through the four stages of womanhood, which is the virgin, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which is the wise woman, the elder. And so I've been guided by my spiritual calling to create this so that more women can step into becoming elders, because society basically treats women as disposable. It's like once you're not sexy enough, once men don't find you useful,
Mhm.
then you're just relegated to be like an old woman. And so, because I see a lot of my friends who are around my age who are struggling to do whatever they can to stay young and sexy and relevant. And I go, why? Why do we care about a man's gaze at 50? Like, why we should care about what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, what we want to say before we go.
Mhm.
And so for me, I realize how many women struggle with finding their worth and value at this age. And I feel like this is when we're the most important. This is when we really need to give our wisdom back to young women and to society, humanity, and menopause is very important. And so I'm also working on a novel called Men on Pause. And it's the exploration of menopause because I'm going through it myself and it's very comical. I've had so many funny experiences going through menopause that I go, man, I gotta write Men on Pause. It's like the
Mm.
follow-up to Real Women Have Curves.
Oh,
Um,
that's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So there's just so many things, like again, because I have ADD, my brain constantly needs stimulation, right? And sometimes it's food, and I'm trying not to like use food as a stimulant, and I don't want to get on medication. Because for me, I feel like ADD is a spiritual dimension to me that, in having to do my spiritual work, I realized that a lot of people who are on spiritual paths or they're on their last life, if you believe, I'm also a past life regression hypnotherapist. If
Oh,
you're at the end of your reincarnation cycle, you tend to have attention deficit disorder because you're trying to accomplish so many things in one lifetime that you're living the life of six people in one lifetime, which has kind of been my experience. And that's how come we're always multitasking. We're always like, ah. And it's because part of it too is because we're very intuitive people and we can predict everything. I mean, I predict things all the time. Like when people do things, I go, they're going to do this because everyone's predictable. Unless you have original thoughts, we can pretty much predict what everyone's going to do. So for me, I like to do things that are fresh and new and authentic and try new things and learn as much as I can. So I have a very hungry mind.
wow, this shines such a different light on ADD. I love it because it's just making sense. And
There's a book called The Added Dimension, which I
mhm,
would recommend to anyone, which talks about the gifts of ADD. And, when your
okay.
frontal lobe isn't developed because of either a lot of factors, either trauma in the womb or because you didn't get enough nutrition or you were born premature, um, the blessing is that you are really intuitive because the filter that's supposed to filter out information coming at you isn't working. So you're able to pick up more information. You're able to sense things and even see things before they happen because you're already aware of what's coming at you before it gets here.
Mhm,
So yeah, there's a lot of things that I can do that would be considered supernatural, which is pretty natural to an ADD brain. And my son has it too. So when he does things that are supernatural, that are super like out there, I'm kind of like, oh wow, that's interesting. His is even more intense than mine. His gifts are even more amazing, and so I celebrate the fact that we're different. Neurodivergent, as I think. Yeah, we're very
mhm.
different.
Awesome. So we ask in from another zero what their other zero is. And this can be more than one, which could be, yes, the Real Women Have Curves is one of them. Simply Maria is another one, I feel. This new journey in studies is another one. Having children, all these things uh, are another zero. What would be Josefina's other
Well, here's
zero?
the thing. How do you define zero, right? Because zero is everything and nothing, right?
Mhm.
How do you define it?
Well, it's just not zero because everybody says,
Oh,
oh, when you have to start over, you have to start from zero.
oh,
I'm like,
okay.
no, not zero. It's
Okay.
another
No.
zero because you learned
Here's
already.
the oh that okay, that's like a lesson from a loss. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
Lessons from losses, right?
And
That's
and
another
gain
book I got.
well,
That's another
yeah.
book I'm working on, Lessons from Losses. So, I would say, like after I had three TV deals at three different networks, and I was working with Norman Lear. And despite having three TV shows at three different networks, none of them got picked. It was devastating. It broke my heart. And then I got in a fight with my business manager and I just walked away from my writing career, TV writing career at 27. And I walked away and I went back to the barrio. I was living in West Hollywood in a really nice apartment. And I went to live in my brother's garage. And I just was so depressed and heartbroken and really just like, I didn't want to live. I mean, it was so bad. So I started writing poetry. And what I've noticed is when I'm really heartbroken, I jump to another art form, whether it's floral design, or poetry or painting. And so I started doing other things besides writing. And after 2 years, it's like you have to fill your cup up again with new possibilities. And so then I became a poet and I started doing like performance art and sketch comedy. And I rebuilt myself up. And I realized that even if I'm living in my brother's garage, I am not starting from zero because I have this incredible mind, and money is temporary. Money comes and goes. I went from like living in my brother's garage, and then 2 years I was living in Paris in an apartment that took up the whole third floor in the close to Champs-Élysées, right?
Oh,
So to go
wow.
from my brother's garage and then meeting a man who we found in love, and then we ended up going to Paris, and then it turns out he was very, successful, or it just was like, what? I did a 180 in 2 years where like these two, and so you realize that all this is temporary, right? Living in a garage with no money, living in Paris, and the third, just enjoy the ride because everything is temporary.
Wow. I love it. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for making the time and the space. Um, we are looking forward to seeing you on April 11th and then going to see Real Women Have Curves, which is until May 3rd. We're going to put all the information over here. And I love also what you shared about changing the art form, right? When you're not seeing or not that getting that echo that you needed at that point, because it's so easy, and especially in this climate, and also I feel in this mass like a viral tendency longing that we are living right now, it's kind of easy to get discouraged and ask yourself, what am I doing? Should I keep doing it? Should I stop? But then it also has to do with how it feels for you, not necessarily the response that you get from other people. So I feel that you
It,
also put that
you
real.
always have to remember that, if you're doing it for you, it's not gonna last. It's not worth it. But if you're doing it to be a source of inspiration for others, then it's worth it.
Mhm.
Because in the end, the only thing you take with you is what you give away, right? Which is your authenticity, your truth, your wisdom. So that's why I've been at this for so long, Your ego can only take you so far, your intellect can only take you so far, but your corazón will guide you all the way. And yeah, so that's a come when people say, "Oh, shall I keep doing?" I go, "Well, obviously, if you need to make money, um, it's not it can be very lucrative career writing for TV, right? It's one of the most lucrative careers, but it's also one of the most difficult, right? And so sometimes you can be very successful, but I'll tell you, the reason I'm not like I don't work a lot in TV is because there's a lot of compromises that you have to be willing to make, whether it's sacrificing, your family life, right? Because if you're working 12 hours a day, and more like 12 to 16, if you're a producer or at a higher level, then that's your life. So you got to go, okay, I get paid all this money, but I have no children or I have no life, So you got to decide,
Yeah.
The other one is, sometimes you want to write a TV show, but then they go, yeah, can you add more sex and violence? I'm all for the sex, but the violence is always about, can you like emphasize the criminal element of your community? Can you,
Mhm.
put a drive-by? Can you really just focus on the cholos, rather than the other stories? And so sometimes you have to ask, could I sell out my people? Am
Yeah.
I okay selling out my people to make a lot of money? And you know what? Some people are, and I know those people. I see them everywhere in Hollywood. I know who they are, and and I have a conciencia. I
Mhm.
can't sleep with myself if I sell out my people, if I know I did something that goes against my morals, or my integrity. So that's a kind of like, what, no amount of money is worth selling your soul, in every which way of that word and what that means. Okay. So to me, I feel like, so it just depends when you mean like, should I keep going? I go, well, What motivates you? Why are you doing it? Um, again, so here's the thing. If you stick with it, you will succeed. That's it. Because as soon as you commit 1,000%, your unconscious mind will do everything it can to find every opportunity. But you have to absolutely commit. That's
Mhm.
how miracles happen. It's when you are in doubt, when you are this way or that way, you're not deciding that your unconscious mind, which is your genie, cannot manifest what you want because it doesn't know what you want. So if you commit 1,000%, you focus only on succeeding, you focus on only on opportunity and winning, you will succeed because that is the way human beings are made. That's the way our soul is made. That's how we manifest things at the quantum level, right? So it just depends what it is that you want and why you want it, right? Now, here's the thing I tell people, look, if you want to be famous and you want to be a writer because you want to be famous, you want to be an actress, you want to be famous, go get therapy instead. It's cheaper and easier, right? Because this incessant need to have power and
Mhm.
fame often comes from a part of you that's broken. Okay, your soul is shattered. There's trauma that happened to you as a child where maybe you had a narcissistic parent who never saw you, you never felt heard and seen. And so now you have to let everyone know who you are. Now you have to let everybody know how amazing you. Now you want power over people to get back at your parent. I go, no, go get therapy. That's better, right? And if you've done therapy and you still want to be a writer and you want to be a source of inspiration, or you still want to be an actor and you've done your work, your emotional, spiritual work, so that you don't project all that trauma onto people,
Mhm.
and then yeah, I would say, yeah, keep doing it. Right. But the reality is that a lot of people that want to be rich and famous, especially a lot of men that I see, they just want to have power and influence so they can sleep with as many women as they can. And this has been the reality that I see. And I just go, well, you know what? If you constantly need women's validation, you constantly need to sleep with women to feel validated, go get therapy. It's cheaper and easier. And you don't have to be me too, like. So, and again, I'm too real for people, but I've seen this, and like there's plenty of like creepy people in this industry, the most narcissistic people, because it's about power and fame. But I tell people, look, no amount of your ego can only take you so far. And what happens to people, and this is what I warn people, let's say you do get what you want. Let's say you get to be rich and famous. Well, guess what fame does? It amplifies all the good and bad in you. Okay. So all that pain you have, it's going to make it bigger. So that hole you have is going to become bigger. And you know what's going to fill it? You're either going to have to do spiritual work or therapy or healing work, or you're going to have to do cocaine or drugs. Okay. Because there's no, and then you know what happens? If you are not humbled in some way, because you will have to be humbled, right? Because when you are in the false illusion that fame or wealth is going to give you that sense of completeness, then you are going to have to be humbled because that's the only way you grow. And so you're going to have to be humbled where you're going to be embarrassed or shamed or do something that's egotistical so that people put you in your place, and you got to go to rehab,
Mhm.
emotional rehab, or you got to go, do the drugs and then almost die and then go to rehab, or you got to have a near-death experience.
Oh,
Right? So that's the reality. So I tell people, no, look, I stay humble. I'm always learning. I always try to say, you know what? I'm being given this. I am just a vessel. I'm being given ideas to share this with humanity. So I just allow for light to come into me, knowing that I'm just a vessel, right? And this need for fame or success, I've already taken care of that. I've already done a lot of the trauma work and healing so that I don't need that.
yeah, this is amazing. Well, thank you again so much for the time, the space, and sharing all of this, which is it's like so much from everywhere that I can take, and I'm sure that people watching can take as well. And we have time. So if you want to see her, you can see her. 5 years ago, I can't believe it. When From Another Zero had podcasting legs because we went on a hiatus. We're still on hiatus. Podcasting legs. We had an episode dedicated to Chicanas, Cholas, y Chisme.
Oh, awesome.
So it's awesome to have, more people that come from, you know, you opening doors and ways and spaces and everything for other people to do their work and share also their creativity. So this is, for me, it's really cool and awesome. I don't want to think about the years, but it's just really cool and awesome to just think about, the interviews and the people that have been here.
Qué bueno.
Thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing you, seeing the play, and whatever else comes your way. We'll be following you from another series, Tu Casa.
Yes.
Come back whenever, and we can have a cafecito or maybe something else. Thank you so much, Josefina.
All right, gracias. Adiós.
Bye.